It's Tuesday, the 15th of December 2020. Welcome to the Fear and Greed Business Headlines, the business news you need in just 5 minutes. I'm Sean Aylmer. Today's headlines: Australia's $85 billion iron ore export sector gets caught up in the Canberra-Beijing trade stoush as coal is banned from China. That's our main story. Plus, New Zealand and Australia are set to create a travel bubble in March next year. The share price of two of the country's biggest companies hit new record highs, and a major cyber attack hits the US. Beijing has officially blacklisted Australian coal, Australia's second largest export to China, worth $14 billion annually. And local iron ore producers are now being asked to explain high prices. China's National Development and Reform Commission reportedly issued an edict on Saturday banning Australian coal. Canberra expected a reduction in demand, but not necessarily a ban. In the case of iron ore, the country's biggest export, Australia's largest mining companies, BHP and Rio Tinto, have been asked to explain to Chinese steel manufacturers why their iron ore prices are so high. The China Iron and Steel Association said the iron ore pricing mechanism had failed, and it was calling on Chinese regulators to investigate prices and severely crack down on possible violations of laws and regulations, according to the Australian newspaper. Australia exports $85 billion worth of iron ore to China each year. The price of the ore is at a 9-year high for several reasons. China's factories are accelerating as it works to recover from the COVID-19 pandemic. Stockpiles of iron ore in the country are dropping, and the other major producer, Brazil, is having production difficulties. The price of iron ore fell 5% yesterday, triggering a fall in share prices after the news out of China. The Australian newspaper is reporting that BHP was quizzed by Chinese officials last week, and Rio Tinto will meet officials this week. So far, the value of banned exports to China is about $20 billion, but iron ore would make it a whole different ballgame. Cooler heads need to prevail. A ban on iron ore exports, while still less likely, would do serious damage to the Australian economy. In overseas news, in what has been described as one of the biggest logistics operations akin to the Allied landings at Normandy, the United States has commenced trucking and flying doses of the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine across the country. The first jabs went to healthcare workers. Canada also commenced its vaccine program overnight. US lawmakers said they plan to split the $900 billion stimulus package in half to make it easier to get approval. It's almost official. The Electoral College from each US state are convening to officially cast their votes for president. By about lunchtime Australian Eastern Daylight Time, Joe Biden will be confirmed as the next president of the United States. There's been a major cyber attack overnight on large US companies, with an emergency warning from the Department of Homeland Security to disconnect from the SolarWinds Orion platform. Almost all Fortune 500 companies and many federal agencies use the platform to gain entry into secure IT systems. The attack is believed to be state-sponsored. And Google experienced a widespread failure of its services overnight, including YouTube, Gmail, Maps, and its workplace collaboration tools. It potentially affected 2 billion users. Locally, the Aussie dollar will hit US 82 cents in the first half of 2022. According to Westpac chief economist Bill Evans, he said demand for iron ore, the strong Chinese economy, and Australia's success in containing the coronavirus would continue to support the local unit. New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern has given the go-ahead for quarantine-free travel between Australia and the Shaky Isles starting by the end of March. Federal Health Minister Greg Hunt said Australia had already given in-principle support to the Trans-Tasman travel bubble, which wasn't surprising given that people travelling from New Zealand already don't have to go into quarantine. Meanwhile, there are hopes that the AstraZeneca Oxford University vaccine will be approved and ready for rollout in Australia by the end of February. The Australian Competition and Consumer Commission has given the green light for IOOF to acquire MLC from National Australia Bank. It said feedback from customers, industry participants and financial advisors had suggested the $1.4 billion deal wouldn't substantially lessen competition. Wesfarmers share price hit a record yesterday, up 2.7% to close at $50.94. The former Farmers Cooperative from Western Australia now operates divisions across retail, including Bunnings and Officeworks, chemicals and fertilisers, and mining and safety products. Buy Now, Pay Later group Afterpay also hit a record high yesterday, up almost 9% to close at $109.93. The group enters the ASX 20 on December 21, following Standard & Poor's quarterly review of stocks. It will replace insurer IAG. Survey by the Australian Financial Review showed that few employers plan to encourage workers back to the office until well after Christmas. And 24 out of 25 firms in the survey expected work from home would become a feature of corporate life. Flexible start times will also be the norm, as will hybrid models. Some days in the office, some days at home. That's the Fear and Greed business headlines for today. There's more on all of these stories in today's full Fear and Greed podcast, as well as an interview with investigative journalist Adele Ferguson about company directors. I'm Sean Aylmer. Enjoy your day.